you should be able to stand firm in the court system and show what you're doing. Prove it. Prove what you're doing. If you stand firm and you prove it, and then later in life, hopefully later in life, that they finally realize what it was that happened and that took place.
Welcome to A Father's Purpose. My name is Mike, and today I'm truly blessed to have a special guest in our podcast to share some amazing things with you guys. And today's guest, the first time I heard from them was from the Future Wifey podcast, and I had loved everything you said about yourself in the video and how your healing journey has been. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Isaac Davis. Did I say it right?
Yes, you said it correctly. How's everybody doing?
How you doing today, man?
Man, I'm awesome, man. Awesome. Living life and having a blast living.
Right. So how has been your healing journey has been for you?
The healing journey started, 2 decades ago. Of course, I shared some personal trauma that happened in my life on the Dear Future Wifey platform, where I talked about how I was raped by my then spiritual father, and how that affected me. So that's what I shared. But that healing process started, 2 decades ago, and definitely that was my very first time actually speaking open about it, and it was just putting a voice to trauma, and it's something that men don't do, and I'm so thankful that I was able to encourage so many other men to come forward and actually talk about their trauma from their childhood as well.
Right, I think that was great, because even when we was on the live on IG, there's a few other men that come out and say, hey, this happens to me. And I think that was great, and that's where the process should continue to be, for more men to come forward and open up about the hurt they've been through and how has it affected them. And I think that also plays a role when it comes to be a father as well, because some men, because they was sexually abused by somebody, and then now if they have a son or a daughter, they feel like they fail as a father because they don't know how to protect them, because they didn't stood for themselves when that happened to them.
Correct.
So how has life been with you and your son after you share that news with the world?
Well, my son is, he's 24 years old, so he's out living his life and enjoying life, doing it big down in Texas. He has served in the military, and he recently got out, and he's married, so he's doing big things with him and his wife, so which is something that I'm truly enjoying watching. He hasn't really said too much. He said, Dad, I know you are very resilient, and you overcome some of the hardest things that people may find hard to overcome, but you find it easy. So he's always been a great encourager of me. He was just shocked to hear it at that level.
Right. But
Yeah.
after you share it, what advice would you give a father who went through the same thing that you went through, but maybe in different circumstances? How would you tell them to have that conversation with their son or daughter?
First is that you do not blame yourself for what happened. That's first and foremost. You cannot blame yourself for the things that somebody else did to you. And when you get beyond that, then you have to forgive the person that actually did or that caused trauma in your life. Definitely forgive them. And then from there, you just go through your rebuilding process of dealing with your anger from it, dealing with the trauma. Yes, you're going to be angry. Yes, you're going to be upset. yes, you're going to question God. God, why did this happen to me? And I think that we have to remember that evil exists in this world and God has nothing to do with evil. Um, I believe that now, as I go back and think about it now, I think about um, I think about were there warning signs prior to that happening? And as I think about it, yes, there were warning signs. But in that time period, when you don't know something and you're not and you're not smart about certain things, those warning signs just look like some everyday stuff to you. And I'm speaking of the actual grooming process, because there was a grooming process that took place that I was completely unaware of. So I definitely would say educate yourselves to what rapists do, to what molesters do. Educate your children of key things, of key words, and just have them to be mindful and watchful of those things. So if they ever happen, then you know exactly what to do and what steps to actually take when those issues come, or when those challenges come in front of you.
Right. And you said forgive. How do you find it in your heart to forgive that person? Because it's hard.
Okay. So for me, because I am a Christian and I understand that forgiveness is for me.
Mhm.
Forgiveness is not for the other person at all. Period. It's all about you. The word says that we must forgive to be forgiven. In other words, how can we expect God to forgive us and yet we don't want to forgive people that have transgressed against us? So forgiving is all about self, and you can freely give forgiveness even though that you're still dealing with the trauma, or you're dealing with the situation, wherever it is that has happened in your life, that you can still be dealing with it and yet you can still forgive the person. Um, so I had to get to a point to where I understood that I cannot allow a, another person's actions to hinder my life. So we have a choice with how long that we want to allow something to bother us, which means this: when you're angry about something, think about how long that you're angry about whatever it is that such and such did to you. You allow the anger to fester in you whatever time period that you allow it to. I chose not to allow anger to persist in my life for a period of a long term time. um, I'll say for me, it probably took me about a good 6 months to get over it, and to start doing things um, that got me back to my core self. And yes, sometimes there are some residual effects to the trauma, and that depends on to what trauma that is that happened in your life. But you can get over it, because forgiveness. Remember that forgiveness is for you. It's not for the other person.
Right,
Because
right.
9 times out of 10, watch this. 9 times out of 10, the person that transgressed against you, they out there living their life. They're not even thinking about what they did to you, and they're happy while the victim is sitting back here traumatized and upset, angry, and going through all of those emotions. And so I do believe that we do get to a point to where that you have to release and let it go.
Right, right. I think it's for me personally, it's challenging, but some of the thing happened to me um back probably when I was maybe 9 years old. But I
Hmm.
was like, "Hey, mom, do you remember such and such happened to me?" And you never said anything. Till this day, she denies it. But it's almost like, how do you process the healing if the person is denying the fact that this never happened?
Well, to be honest, some people would never admit what has happened to you, um, and that's okay. If they never choose to admit what has happened. That is okay, because because it's not about, remember, it's not about them. You know what happened to you, you know what they did to you, you know every single thing that took place. um but you can still forgive them and move on, and then later in life, hopefully later in life, that they finally realize what it was that happened, and that took place. Because if you go back, it's actually proven that most times when a child says something that this happened to them, and the parents like, no, that person didn't do that to you, it's a level of shock for the person that you are telling it to as well, especially when you're a child and you're telling it to your parent, and the parent has to have the withal in themselves to say, hey, let me investigate this, or let me make changes. Because even if you ask the other adult's going to say no, that this didn't happen, unless that the child is able to openly um, describe and explain what happened. And I can say that's something that I did with my children when they were small. I taught them proper pronouns concerning their private areas. This is your vagina. This is your penis. If someone touches you here, you know that I wanted them to be able to fully describe what took place, and I gave them the tools to be able to do that. And with doing that, my children, that they can talk to me today concerning anything of that nature. So, and I do believe you have to proper train your children properly, and stop giving those little, that we have a knack for naming our private parts with these little kitty names. No,
Right.
call it exactly what it is. It
Mhm.
has a proper name.
Right. So you have more than one kid.
Yes, I have a daughter. My daughter's 28 and my son is 24.
Okay, okay. So when that happened to you, was it before you become a father, or
Actually, I was a father. Yes, I was a father then. Both my children were born. My son was a newborn when that happened.
so how did that dynamic change the way you father your kids or your son at that particular moment? Was it a situation where it's like, all right, so I gotta be very like protective over my son because whatever that happened to me, I want to make sure he doesn't that doesn't happen to him.
Yes, it's definitely a protective measure. Like my son could not go over anybody's house for um, um, the
Christmas, Thanksgiving.
sleepovers. No, no, like he couldn't go over to nobody's house that was a sleepover. Uh, and I think that shucks as I think back, I don't think he ever went to anybody's house as a sleepover until he was a teenager. To where he could fully explain it. If something went down, he could come back and actually explain fully in actual detail. But when he was a child coming up, he had no sleepovers. Did our people come to our house and have sleepovers? Yes, because we were protective of everybody's children.
Right.
So yes.
Did you ever explain to him? Did he ever say, "Hey, Dad, why can I do this? My friend is, over such and such house. Why is it I can't go, but they could go?"
Yes, I would definitely say yes. My son did go through that, of like, why can't I go do this? My friends doing this, and son, because we can't trust everybody. That's exactly how that we explained it to him. Son, we cannot trust everybody. Just because the fact that they're your friend and they do this and they do that, it doesn't mean that they're trustworthy. And so that's something that we had to explain to him. And so he didn't get it. Then of course children not going to get it right then and there. But then eventually he came on board, and then as he got older, we started allowing children to come over to the house to stay with us versus him going there.
At what age were you? At what age did you explain to your son like the reason why you were so protective over him?
Ooh, I would say even from when I say when he was in grade school, because that's typically the time frame that kids start wanting to spend the night over when you're in grade school, when you're small and you're playing sports. So, so it was at his younger, during his younger years that we started explaining that, and it just carried through.
Right, right. So, looking back to this journey, you said one of your kids 24, one is 28, right?
Hmm.
So, looking back to that journey, what would you say uh, you fell on as a father that you wish you could do better?
Well, okay, so my son and daughter. Okay, so my daughter was born she was born before my son and before I got married. So the thing that I always say that I wish that I could have done better is that so I was going to fight for custody for my daughter when she was younger, and so I sought the advice of my mother, and I said, "Mom, what would you do in this situation? This is what I want to do, and this is the reason why that I want to do that." And the advice she gave me then was based off of her own experiences, based off of things that she went through. Um, and at that time, I felt that it was the worst advice that I could have taken from my mom, or taken from either one of my parents. Because now I really wish that I'd have fought for the custody the way that I wanted to, because we understand a father plays a significant role within his daughter's life. And so because because of the separate households, because of the distance that we had between us, it created a huge gap in between us. I wanted my daughter to experience her father's love daily versus the weekends that I would go get her, versus when I would always take her. Every vacation I've ever been on, my daughter has always gone. Um, but I wanted her to experience so much more with me versus than just receiving child support every month, and versus me coming to pick her up
Right.
on the weekends or whenever it was time for vacations. So that was some advice I took from my mother that I wish that I never would have took, that I would have never taken from her.
Right, right. But would you said um how would you go about sharing custody? Is it like I have her for a couple of days, you have her for a couple of days, or you would have fight for full custody?
Yes, so I would have fought for a full custody, due to my career and the stabilization that I had in my life versus her mom life. And I felt that I would have won custody. But even if I had not won full custody, just the fact to be able to have the full aspect of joint custody um, would have been beneficial than me not than us just having the agreement between the two of us that I could get my daughter at any time that I felt like it. Because the hindrance came more because I was in the military. So the hindrance came more of when I traveled, when I had overseas assignments. Because I wanted her to come in and live another country for a whole year, or even come for the whole summer, and then come back for the holidays. Um, but her mother was not willing. But if I'd had that custody agreement intact, she could not have denied my daughter coming to spend that time with me. So it's things like that that I miss, and that I wish. But today, me and my daughter look. She calls me she calls me at least 3 times a week. We always texting each other. She has my grandchildren. So it's a beautiful relationship that has blossomed out of the lies that her mother had told her. Because when she was 18, um, um, we had to go back to court to counsel, to stop her child support. And she asked a question to her mom, and she asked a question in front of me. And it was the very first time that her mom didn't have the opportunity to tell her a lie. And when she found out the truth, it was kind of hurting. It was detrimental to her because she always thought that her mom was being truthful to her about me. Um, and so it was when we was in child support court that she learned that I was actually um, paying child support monthly, and her mom had lied to her and told her that I wasn't paying her child support.
Wow, that sounds crazy. But why do you
Yep.
think that a dad and a mom cannot coexist? Because at this point, it's not about you or her anymore. It's about having the best interest for your daughter, because that's all that should matter at the time. Why do you think it's so hard and challenging for a mom and dad to get along to raise their son or daughter?
Well, I don't think that it's hard, nor do I think that it's challenging. What I believe happens is that one of the parents becomes selfish. One of the parents tries to use the child as a pawn to get the other parent to do what they want them to do. I believe when you have mature parents that say, "Hey, our relationship did not work. It did not turn out the way that we wanted it to turn out, which is fine. But let's be great co-parenters to our child." Um, Immaturity of parenting is what causes two parents not to co-parent well. And 9 times out of 10, one of those parents is upset that the relationship did not turn out the way that they wanted it to turn out.
Right, that is so true. In that process, like of you trying to, have a better relationship with your daughter because of the long distance and things like that, what do you think about some fathers who don't even try to be in their son or daughter's life at all?
Yeah, I call them suckers. Uh, you know, um, honestly, I really just call them suckers because you went out here and you created a child, um, but yet you did not want to take on but you did not want to take on the responsibilities of raising that child. And for me, that's a sucker move. I've dated women that had children, and I looked at their child as my own, because when you date someone that has children, you take them on as a full package. Um, so, but yeah, it is upsetting to know that there are men out there that have created children and they did not uphold their end of the bargain to take care of what they created.
Right, that is so true. You said when you date somebody with kids, you treat them as your own. Do that person's kids become an asset or a liability?
It all depends because it can happen both ways. Because depending on the age of the child can cause havoc within our relationship, um, or the child can be acceptive to the relationship and the relationship blossoms well. I said so. I think that depends on the child, and also it depends on the person that you're dating. Is this person going to allow the child to negatively affect the relationship? And if that person is going to allow the child to negatively affect the relationship, then of course there's going to be issues. Now you can discuss it and say, I understand that that's your child. I'm not trying to come in between you and your child's relationship. But what I'm not going to sit here and stand for is you to allow your child to disrespect me. And I think that's something and that goes both ways. Whether it comes from the man's side, whether it comes from the woman's side, is that we have to set those defined boundaries of respect with each other. We have to do that.
Right, that is so true. Just to pick it back on what you said, you call them suckers. I think it's mind blowing to me how you can see a man take time to take a woman out on a date, and that he doesn't even know that person, but you're about to spend quality time to get to know that person, but yet you don't even make the time to see your son or your daughter. It's ridiculous.
True that. And yes, and that is horrible that we do is that we do make all that time to spend with someone else and don't take that same time to spend with our child. Um, um, when you go back in history, and I know that this happens throughout all races, throughout all cultures. I know that this happens. But when you go back in time and you look back in time for African American, it was ingrained in us to leave our families because we were torn away from our families. So the negative side of that is what we so often focus on, and we don't understand generation curses or generations things that have happened generationally in our family, and we have to be and somewhere within a generation, someone has to say we are stopping this. And I am one. I'm so thankful that my dad was such a great example because he had children prior. He has my oldest brother. He and I have different mothers, but I'm so glad and proud of my dad because he gave me such a great example of how to properly take care of your children that you don't have with your spouse. And that's something that I always try to emulate because he was such a great example at doing that.
Right, that's great. Um, what advice would you give a man who is struggling? Um, when I say struggling, meaning like they're trying to gain like custody of their son or daughter, and it's very challenging because the court is not for men. It's really, in my opinion, I don't believe the court its side with the man. The woman always win. But how do you find a common balance to fight for your custody of your kids?
Um, I'm not going to say that the court is not against fathers. I believe that fathers that don't take up for themselves when it comes to child support and child custody hearings, those are the ones that get used by the court system. Um, you should be able to stand firm in the court system and show what you're doing. Prove what you're doing. If you stand firm and you prove in the court system what you're doing, the judge will have leniency towards you. Also, I've seen judges also have favor towards the father because the fact that the father is actively doing stuff. And I can say that for my case, there were times that my daughter's mom tried to take me back to court to get higher child support due to the success in my life. But I was showing the judge how actively I was and was attempting to be in my daughter's life. I would prove to the judge why certain things could not take place. I would prove to the judge how that I would send my daughter's mom job openings and job applications for jobs that would put her in better positions, and I could prove that she would not go to these job interviews. So I had a lot of stuff that I could prove, and so every single time that I would go to court, I would always have substance with me whenever that she tried to do something um, negatively to me through the court system. And I can say that I was gracefully a winner in every single court case that we went through, because I was able to prove things. So when you're doing the right thing, when you're being active like you should be, um, you have tools in your kit bag that you can use as well against your a child's a mother or father. But you gotta have tools in your kit bag. You gotta know the law as well.
Right, that is so true. Because even I think in Texas is one of the worst.
You were saying that how does going back and forth to court affects?
Yeah, the children.
Okay. Um. Well, in my situation, my child never had to come to court with us, so which was great. That she never had to come to court with us. Um. So if the parent try to bring the child to the court with you, then you have to be smart about what you're doing and the decision making. Thankfully, the judges don't allow children in the courtroom until a certain age anyway. So So thankfully that my daughter's mom never ever brought uh, our daughter to court with her. So I'm thankful. So I would say for me, it did not negatively affect her. But if the child is being used as a pawn, then yes, that does have an emotional effect on that a child, and that emotional effect sometimes can be long term because they can start looking at the other parent negatively.
Right, that is so true. As we are coming to an end, what advice would you give to a father who is now in the process of being involved in their son or daughter's life? What advice would you give them how they should go about rebuilding that relationship with their son or daughter that was broken?
Number one, never blame the other parent. First and foremost, never ever blame the other parent. Um, I think that that is a crucial step because you never want your child to think negative of the other parent. You never want your child, you never want to be the one to cause your child to think negatively of the other child, of the other parent. Through time and through maturity, and as the child grows, the child would naturally see the things that you want to say. They would naturally see them, and some children are so smart that they already see them. Sometimes they just don't know how to properly voice it and to speak about it. But go in knowing and going in having a plan with what you want to accomplish with your child when they are in your presence, when they're in your custody, or when you're there together collectively. Have a plan in how that you want to conduct yourself. um and some people may call that as being a sellout. No, you're thinking about what's the best interest for your child. What's the best way that I can communicate to my child and with my child in a non-threatening environment. And so and, and so you always want to look out, you always want to look out for the best interest of your child.
Right, that is so true. Um, if you could tell your son, if you could share a favorite moment with you and your son, what would it be?
A favorite moment between me and my son is always going to be on the basketball court, and I'm in there schooling him, doing them crossovers because he think that he can beat his old dad, and I have to show him over and over and over again. Says, son, look, I'm old school. You can't. Hey, new school, old school. When it comes to basketball, we will always win. So anytime we get on the court, he know that get ready to get this fade because I'm gonna put it on it.
That is so true. Thank you for your time, Isaac. Man, I appreciate you taking the time out to share your story with us and to help other men become better fathers and to open up about the healing journey to help others be better themselves.
Awesome, Michael. Hey, man, I greatly appreciate you, and I greatly appreciate the invite.